that. So wonderful. Today we have Mark 10 with us. Mark has been building consumer products and growing communities for over 12 years. He worked at Amazon retail and gaming initiatives for video games and was a venture fellow for Alumni Ventures Group, helping out VCs to evaluate startups. He's currently at Wise, a consumer tech startup that recently raised 110 million in Series B with community efforts that led to 30 product launches for more than 5 million paying customers and more than 100K community members over the course of 3 years. He's also working on a cohort-based online course on a community-led product. He's also my former coach. He helped me get a job. He helped me get a role that I was seeking. He was coaching me for that. So he was also one of my former career coaches. So it's a special occasion for me to have Mark here today. Mark, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. I am so glad to have you here. And with that, we'll get started. So tell us a little bit about, first of all, if I missed anything from your introduction, or if you want to correct anything, feel free to do that. But otherwise, just tell us about a little bit about your context and tell us about what got you into what you're doing today.
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me here. It's been a while since we first met, but I'm glad you stayed in touch and have been growing this organization. So yeah, what got me into where I am, it's really a matter of understanding what I'm passionate about and then what the opportunities are out there. So I've always been, I started my PM career focusing on user experience or customer experience. So I was working a lot with UX designers and engineers to define user flows. And then over time, so I did that during my first startup in the Bay Area. I did that when I moved to Amazon. And then over time, I started to lean in more and more towards community initiatives. And during my current startup, I was tasked to help and support our community members through initiatives around beta testing and community growth. And I just fell in love with it. I think there's a lot of interesting ideas and passion that come out when you talk to your customers. And that led me to where I am right now. So I enjoy doing product management, but I also love growing communities, and I sit in the intersection of both.
Very cool. Yeah, and you're an amazing teacher as well. So for those who are just joining, Mark will be able to answer your live questions in about 20 minutes. We'll be opening up the lines. You can raise your hands anytime and I'll unmute you so you can ask live questions as well. So with that, tell us about what's going on with creator economy. Why is it such a frenzied growth happening in that space? What's up here?
Yeah, there's a lot going on every day. There's always something new coming out. But for those who aren't familiar, so creator economy is you can think of it as it's built by millions of independent content creators or curators, product builders, and community managers designed to help themselves to grow and monetize for their own growth. I guess to answer your question, there's a lot of movement around it because there's a lot of changes in terms of social media and platforms, and content creators are having more and more power to express themselves. So I guess it started with some level of frustration coming from content creators, knowing that a lot of their content, user-generated content, are bringing in traffic to the big platforms, but there's less control on their side in terms of monetizing it and owning the user, so to speak. But over time, new companies have seen the opportunity to address that gap and started opening up and teaming up with content creators. So I guess in summary, Legion is like the go-to person for this one, argues that like the work is getting unbundled from traditional employment, right? So we're seeing more and more of micro entrepreneurs, free agents, freelancers who are using all of these platforms to make a living, and that's very liberating. Like people realize that leveraging skills and knowledge without the traditional constraint is actually powerful for personal growth.
Yeah, and as a creator yourself and as a creator myself, I've noticed that it gives you that sense of liberation that you can just have a phone, you can have a small mic, and you can literally change the direction of your career, and you can create things like courses and communities and whatnot. What was the thing that makes you brought you at this specific intersection? Like you said, what was the thing about creator economy and product management that attracted you? Was it the community aspect of it as a product manager? What was that? What was that first thing that was like, aha, this is there's something going on here. I gotta tap into this area. What was that for you? What was that moment like for you?
I guess it's just a shift. So product management skills are very transferable, right? So like initially I was applying it for a product or software solutions that are in a larger organizational context, right? So I was building product within a startup environment or a large scale company. And then as I started doing more and more of exploration out there, I saw a lot of passionate creators doing it for themselves. And I said, wow, this is interesting. As an independent creator, you have the ability to apply the PM practices, right? You ideate and research on what product you want to build. You look at specific customers and challenges that you want to address, and then you try to look at yourself to see like what you're good at and what you're how can you contribute to that solution, right? So like as I started seeing that, I got really excited about joining myself. So like this year I started thinking about, okay, I'm really passionate about teaching. Before I was an instructor in many different either universities or like other ed tech platforms. And then I thought about creating one myself. So I said, okay, after doing this for a while, I can own it end to end by building a curriculum and content that is close to what I'm doing. So I started diving deeper into community and product management content and combining both. And I saw the gap or opportunity to highlight that. So yeah, that led me to joining a couple of cohort-based programs as well as creating one for myself. And yeah, at the point that we're chatting, we're about to launch that in 2 weeks. So super excited.
Oh, wow. Tell us more about that while we are on it. Is this a cohort-based course on how to build communities for product managers? What is it? Tell us about it.
Yeah, so like this is actually very meta, right? Because there's a lot of movement around being a creator or a content creator, having your 100,000 true fans, and then building a community around it. So there's a power in terms of bringing in your community into your journey. So the course that we're teaching is all about how do you combine those two disciplines. So I mentioned earlier that I sit in the intersection of community building and product building. So this is for early founders who might be building a prototype, who have not found their users yet, or it can be for product managers launching a new product within a larger organization. So this can even be for community builders. So these are the three personas that we're trying to reach out to because it's very powerful if you understand how to mobilize your community of users to help you co-design your product. So that's what we're teaching.
Wow, that sounds powerful. I would love to learn more about it. Perhaps even share that with our community at Product Manager HQ. Mark, one question that I have for you is, as you think of community building, traditionally community building used to be under the traditional marketing organizations, or yeah. So and now it's kind of shifting towards product organizations. Is that first of all, is that an accurate observation? And if it is, does that mean product managers are becoming their role is becoming broader, or is that like what? Help me unpack all of this. I'm not clear because I thought that community was for marketing people, and now I'm seeing this product focus on it, and I'm sure there is some reason for it. So help us unpack all of that, please.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm also very confused when I first started doing this. So I guess it's important to understand that community can fall under two buckets, right? Depending on the product. There are products where the community is the core. So for example, these are the social media platforms, meaning without the community, there is no product because there's nothing, there's no content, right? The second bucket is community improves the product. So for example, the one that I always give is like Notion, right? So Notion is a productivity system that allow people to manage content that can exist without community. But what they did is they started allowing people to build templates and build on top of it. So the community acts as a multiplier effect to the product. So two buckets. Now, if you're building a product where community is core, then that's more obvious, meaning you have the product managers working on that because that's the whole journey, right? The PMs will build the community product. I think it's less obvious on the second part because the PMs can just build on the content management system without really thinking about the users. However, if you bring in, if you look at the product's life cycle, right, there's ideation, research, and then development and testing, and then launch, right? Broadly speaking. So if you traditionally PM would do user-centric research and focus group discussions in small scale, and then you get to ship the product out there to announce it to your community. But more and more, like businesses are seeing that it's more scalable and it's more practical to just give more visibility and bring in the community members earlier in the product life cycle. So what does that mean? So in our case, for example, we have a space for community members to look at our partial roadmap, or we also have a section for wish list where people can vote for what they want. So this community-driven practices are done in a bigger scale, more publicly, because you're opening the door not just between you and the users, but also between user to user. And it's actually fascinating. Like sometimes you'll see community members responding to another community members defending the company as to why it takes so long to build something. Because a lot of the community members are tech savvy too, so they would actually help support you and be an advocate to what you're doing. I can go on there, but in a nutshell, I'd say, yeah, there's a lot of opportunity to simplify the work, help you get a better sense of what collective feedback looks like that can help you as a PM prioritize what you want to do next.
Mm. So we set the groundwork here. We established what creator, with the shift in creator is happening, what community is doing, and now I want to understand like what is the result of all of this? Like, does this mean that you cannot ignore community when building products going forward, or what does that mean for product managers who are like, we have 20 people here. What does that mean for them? Should they focus on like gaining the skill set, or is the traditional ways of building products still applicable? Like, what is the result of all of this?
Yeah, so I guess let me think about that for a sec. This doesn't mean that if you don't do community, you're not gonna succeed. So like I guess that's one thing to call out. Like you can the PM practices are fundamental, and they focus on like addressing customer needs, right? But you can think of learning about community practices as delivering three value. One is you accelerate product market fit. Why? Because instead of talking to a few people, you're talking to people at scale, right? So the more people you ask, the higher likely that what you're building is something that they want. So that's number one. Number two is you also improve product quality through group feedback. And why is that? Because if you're talking one-to-one or you're doing surveys and the inputs or feedback is just flowing from members to you, then you're not breaking down the silos of individual feedback that could have been discussed together. So having a collective feedback and consensus will give you a better visibility on and understanding on how to improve the product. So second bucket is product quality. And then the final bucket is you build a loyal audience. So the more you bring in your community into your product building, the more they feel empowered and have a sense of ownership that they play the part in building that. So like the good thing about that is by the time that you launch a product, they'll be there rallying and cheering behind you because they know exactly the journey that you've gone through. So in summary, it's accelerating product market fit. It's improving product quality, and then number three, it's building a loyal audience at scale.
Wow, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's just an extension. It's a natural extension of PM practice, right? And I would love to, this all sounds very good theoretically, and even practically. Like I've done some of this work, but for our audience, if they want to see like tangible examples of companies that are actually doing this and have successfully done this, does any companies come to your mind?
Oh yeah, I did. I did mention Notion as one. The other one, that very similar, Figma. So if you think about it, right, Figma is a design tool, and like Figma allowed people to like just build on top of it using different approach. So it's very similar to Notion. There's like modules, templates, and people collaborating together on the cloud. And then they also make sure that on top of that, they build like community initiatives and programs that we normally are like would be more familiar with, like events and marketing and social gatherings and things like that. Other powerful community driven practices is like Duolingo, right? So Duolingo is a language translation app, and you can use it on your own. Like you don't have to talk to other people. But Duolingo has a website, and they do in real life events that allow people to practice what they're learning in the product and outside of it. So yeah, we can list a lot of consumer products and even B2B products that are thinking about creating this mindset of community building, and then putting that as another layer to accelerate product growth.
Mm. So is there a concept? I know you mentioned the concept of enablers at one point when we were talking prior to this call. Is that part of are those case studies, or would you consider them part of the creator economy ecosystem, as in companies like Medium or Substack?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we shifted a little bit on the community building aspect. Well, but that doesn't mean that they're not, right? Because these platforms are actually still being used by independent creators, right? So like independent creators are using this productivity tools to deliver their needs. And if you want to move it a little bit closer to the output, there's a lot of, I mean, you mentioned it, there's a lot of platform across different categories. So for creators for writers, you mentioned it, there's Medium and Substack where you can just build on top of it, and then you can you let those platforms manage distribution, right? And then you also have the ability to monetize on top of it. And then if you're doing a course, there's Teachable, there's Skillshare. I'm doing one in Maven, and these are platforms that allow us to deliver our content outside. And then there's a lot of other categories, but going back to your question, they're different. You can think of it as different components that you need to put together to build a car. And then all of these different tools empower content creators to create their work.
Got it. Now, a more of a personal question. Do you identify yourself as a product manager, a creator, or something else? Like what is, or a teacher? What do you strongly identify with, or is it all of them? Like, I'm very curious about that. Yeah.
That's a good question. I have I say I'm a PM by heart, so I still say I am a product builder, just to like let people understand the perspective that I'm coming from. Because even if I'm doing community, my mindset is actually less about sales or marketing. It's still about product building. So I let people see the work that I'm doing, but then I anchor it according to what I'm passionate about. So I always say that I'm product and community builder.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. I know that was kind of a personal question, but I appreciate you sharing that. Now, moving on to our product management practices around creator products. What would you say is some of your guidance for product managers who are working in that space? Or let's say if I want to go work for Maven, what would you recommend as like a way for me to brush up my skills or gain, be able to create value for a creator platform? What are some of the skills I need to master as a product manager to be successful working for a creator platform?
look at how much time you're spending on different areas, right? On different platforms. Look at your time usage, check your iPhone. The reason why I'm saying that is the you should try to do something that you're really passionate about, and usually that's the time that where you're spending the most. So that's a good indicator. And then look at how you can contribute to that, right? So it doesn't have to be teaching. It can be like teaching and writing are two things that we mentioned, but it can be like doing something on the gaming space, or doing something on the commerce space, or in community space. So there's a lot of areas that you can pick. You just need to choose and ask yourself what you're good at, and how you can contribute to that space. And then in terms of actually practicing it, my suggestion is just go in there and then contribute to different communities. Like, you can start very simple. Like, if someone asks a question, go in there and then try to think, is this something that you're knowledgeable of? Can you respond to that question? And then help the person, right? So the more you do it, the more you'll discover and understand yourself, the more you'll find your voice. So it's all about finding your voice, and you do that by articulating what's inside your head, and what's inside your heart, so to speak.
Yeah, it's funny when you actually verbalize or put it out, it takes a life of its own, right? It becomes its own thing, and you start reflecting on it, and it becomes a piece of its own, a life of its own. So so what I'm hearing you say, Mark, is, let's say, if you are a PM who is interested in working in a creator platform, then you have to be inherently a creator, or you have to have empathy for creators. Going back to our PM principles, you have to have empathy for your users who are going to be creators. And in order for you to gain that empathy, you might as well become a little bit of a creator yourself. So go post on platforms, go write, go create videos, go create a mini newsletter series, go create a set of new blogs, but go create something. And in the process of doing so, if you do that for long enough, you will start understanding the thinking and the feelings behind what creators go through, right? Am I capturing that?
Exactly. Like, everyone is a creator. You're doing it at home, at work, and you just need to look at different trends and opportunities, and then also build on top of those platforms.
Yeah, and you are one of the most prolific creators I know, and it's amazing that you can just like crank out new content, create new courses. You've coached so many people. One question I have for you is, what are some of the ways you can accelerate? What are some of the ways you recommend others accelerate their journey of becoming a creator? Has any specific approaches work for you more effectively when it comes to accelerating your career as a creator?
Well, thank you for those kind words. There's a lot of like incredible creators there, but I would say that don't be afraid to fail. Number one, don't think too much about what other people will say, especially at the start, because the reality is sometimes you get into your own headspace, right? That people are gonna judge you, but the world is so noisy that people will probably look at your post like for 2 seconds and then move on to something else. So that is not a bad thing. That is a good thing, because that means that you can experiment and grow and improve yourself before you make it big, right? So I'm doing that. Like, I'm not afraid to fail. I'm just posting content out there because I know that everything is about growth. Now, if you want a more tactical approach, then you should make your content more public. So like, there's a lot of like content sharing sites that you can use, where you can just post something and let people look at it and share feedback. So use that. You can also commit to a deadline, right? So you can say, hey, I'm going to launch something by end of the month, and then just like declare that, and then slowly provide updates more publicly, because that will push you to do better. You will get feedback from other people that will allow you to make even more progress, that will get you closer to the finish line.
Got it. Very interesting. Who are some of your favorite creators in the product space? I know that's the loaded question, because you're gonna give me a list, and then there's gonna be the list of people that you didn't mention, and they're gonna be all, oh, Mark didn't mention my name. But anyways, I'm still gonna ask that question. Who are some of your favorite creators in the product space? Since you're here,
There's quite a few. Like I feel like I have to open my Twitter account. Twitter is actually a good place for experimentation, more so than a more polished like LinkedIn platform. But within the PN space, like the first, like Lenny is very well known in the PN space. He creates a lot of he has a lot of different ideas. He writes a newsletter. He has like a community of thousands of people in it. So I think that's one very strong creator in that space, right? And then there's other, like I'd focus on groups. So there are like groups focusing on like more marketplaces and SaaS products, and like I suggest like trying to like explore these different groups and then find where you belong and then just like interact with them. I don't have yeah, like there's quite a few, and I'm gonna avoid giving more names, but that's my approach to that.
Wonderful. Yeah, I am subscribed to Lenny's newsletter. I'm one of his fans as well. Going back to our product management capabilities for creators and product managers, what are some of the ways you drive product requirements for creator platforms? What are some of the recommendations you have to become a better product manager or create better requirements for creator platforms?
Yeah, so I'd say like think of the creator platform as like layers. So the first one is like the fundamental layer of how do you enable a creator to find their audience and then manage distribution, right? So from that lens, then you can think of ways to help creators share, right? Share their content and make it easier for them to create one. So that's like the first layer. The second layer is how do you help content creator manage their content, right? Or monetize and get reach on their content. So when you think from that lens, then you start thinking about, okay, maybe there are features or ideas that you can create that will allow for advertising or revenue sharing or sponsored content. If you want to go a little bit core to the product or closer to the product as opposed to less of ads, then maybe you can create like tipping features or like digital content sales or merchandising. So there's a lot of different ideas that you can bring to life to help these creators. And then, yeah, the final layer is just thinking of the creator as a business. So like the creation of the content and the monetization of that are two buckets. And then creators need to manage their finances, right? So how do they effectively manage their sales? What dashboard and analytics tools do they need? So you start thinking about, okay, it's not just about this particular content, it's about running that effectively across the year, right? So those are the three different ways that you should think about on how to bring or how to support creators through different tools.
Mm. And what are you mentioned these things? How do you go about predicting where the future is going with respect to the creator platforms? Are there any trends that you can share with us?
Yeah, actually, I was reading Signal Fire. If you haven't looked it up, they brought up some. I mean, they brought up a lot of points around this. So if you're asking for trends, number one is like creators are moving their fans off like these more constrained social networks into their own areas, right? So people are creating their sites and channels so that they can directly reach out to their community or fans. So that's number one. Number two is doing that enable the creator to start thinking more like a founder as opposed to a content provider in a platform, right? So that's the second trend. And then the final trend is creators like gaining more autonomy in terms of connecting directly on a one-to-one basis, right? So one-to-one meaning individual personalities rather than having this one single black box of persona. So yeah, those are the different trends in the economy. And then in summary, creators are doing that alongside being a content provider in different platforms, which result in like diversification of revenue stream.
Mm. Wow. Okay. So with that, how would you go about building a strategy? Is there like a approach you would take for, let's say, if I want to create a creator platform for um, all the sketch artists,
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
right? How would you, what would be the strategy? How, like, not the strategy, but rather the approach towards the strategy, right? Do you have any thoughts there? Like, I know you were talking about some layers thing earlier, so yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Another, so one way to look at it is look at the different entities, right? So you can think of it like a marketplace. There are people who are doing the sketches. That's what you said, right?
Yeah,
Sketches.
sketches, yeah.
All right, so sketches, and there are people consuming those sketches, right? Maybe they're interested in arts, and those people you can subsegment, you can further segment them into different areas, right? And then there are companies or third-party providers who are providing tools for the people who are doing the sketching. So, like when you understand the different groups and entities and how they interact together to make this platform
Mm,
work, then you can start thinking about, okay, where are the which parts are missing support? Are you missing creator tools, and do you need to create uh, s- uh, valuable solutions for them first in order to generate more content, in order to bring in more people, more consumers, or more fans, right? So based on the supply and demand of the content between the provider and the consumer, then you can make a decision on which one to tackle first.
wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So what I'm hearing is there could be multiple sides to the market when it comes to creator platforms. There could be the people who are supporting with the tools and the technology. There could be people who are creating, and that could be the people who are consuming, right? And you have to think of all of them, and you have to understand which of those variables will jumpstart your creator platform and build around that capability. Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all of this valuable knowledge with us, Mark. Really appreciate it. Now is the time for the audience to raise their hand. I will be happy to unmute you if you want to put your question in the chat. If you're radio shy, you can also put your question in the chat. I'm happy to bring that over. So if you have any questions, now is the time to ask Mark your question. Mark is here with us, so you might as well ask him questions while you have that opportunity. So with that, I wanted to ask you, while we are waiting for the questions, where do you think is your passion in the next few years going to be around? Do you see yourself becoming a influencer, a creator, a product creator, a platform creator? You can take so many paths with the background and the talent that you have. So where do you see yourself going over the course of next few years, now that you're equipped with all this information and knowledge?
Yeah, I see myself more as enabling communities or empowering communities and building products and tools for them, because I enjoy creating that sense of belongingness and trust among different members. And there's a lot of way to facilitate that, right? So maybe you can create a tool that will connect people together so that they can hop on a call more easily or share their experiences more openly. And I really enjoy creating that environment while putting my experience as a product manager. So yeah, I go back to what I said, that I consider myself as a product and community builder. And as a result of that, that's the lens of like creation that I want to be known for.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Are there any startups in this space that excite you, that are really doing cutting edge work? That, I know you work as a fellow or a mentor for First Round as well, and several other VC firms. So are there any hot startups that you recommend are doing like cutting edge work in this space that that you're inspired by?
Oh, there's quite a few. Maybe I'll just pick one, Fintech. So Fintech has a lot of growth in terms of opening the ability for like retail investors to participate, right? So like the well-known example is Robinhood, who went IPO, and then there are other ones that are going really fast. So there's public, there's common stock. These are apps that allow investors to gain knowledge from other investors as opposed to just the people who are in the Wall Street space, so to speak. So I think it's very fascinating that you can see knowledge exchanges and due diligence and memos being published by individuals, and that is another lens, right? You're empowering individuals to bring content to life that will help them voice out their opinion, but also help other people make a decision on what to do next.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing this. We do have one question from Claire Martin. The question is, what comes first, community or content? How easy is it to scale content to target a wide community? So those are two questions. Yeah.
That's an interesting question. Thanks, Claire, for asking this. I don't think I've been asked this one. Maybe before answering it, let's break it down, right? So community really is a group of people coming together with the same interest, right? So there should be like a mission and purpose for that community to come together. If that mission is clear from the get-go, then the community is already built in from the start, right? So for example, maybe there is a community of parents who are coming together to think about how to improve their lives in this COVID situation, right? So in that case, you know the problem that they're trying to solve for and what their concerns are, and they're coming together to address that. So in that lens, there's a community around it, even though there's no solution yet. On the flip side, content comes in many forms, right? It can be audio, like the social media content that we see. So let's focus on that. In that lens, like a creator can be forming content and distributing that to a large number of people, but these individuals aren't really talking to each other yet, right? So like at some point they will talk to each other, and what that means is the content came first. So like I guess you cannot generalize between the two unless you understand the problem space that you're solving for. So let's just put it that way. I hope that answers it. So I'm not sure if Claire can chat and confirm, but that's the answer to the first question. And now let's go to the second question, which is how easy it is to scale content to target a wide community. This one is again, it depends on the tools that you're using, but the good thing is they're constantly evolving and the distribution and reach is becoming wider, right? So right now the platforms are becoming open. You can target different types of platforms via mobile or desktop or whatever the category is. So there are platforms that are more general, there are platforms that are more deep, and all of these allow you to reach to your audience more widely. So the answer is it's becoming easier and easier. What's becoming difficult is rising above the noise. So that's one thing that you should consider, right? Because there's a flood of content that you can consume there. So it becomes more of a concern on how do you get noticed as opposed to how do you distribute it to your audience.
Does that answer your question, Claire? The second part of your question, which is the scaling of content to target a wider community. You have any follow-up? Feel free to chat, or I can unmute you as well. Happy to do that. So yeah, with that, one question I have for you is, writing community has so many creator platforms. Do you see them consolidating at any point? Is that something that's likely to happen? Just curious, because writing is such a broad space, and there are so many players in that space. So yeah, I'm curious, what are your thoughts on that? I know this is a very broad question, and you may not have an opinion because it's kind of broad, but yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
I won't say consolidating. I think it's more of cooperating with each other. So there's another lens around cooperation amongst different creators that you can look at. Meaning, now that you're empowered to do it on your own, you can team up with another writer to co-create something to complement your skills or to fill in the gaps that you have, right? So I'll see more and more people realizing that it's easier to work and collaborate with other people and using that as a way to create and produce more content in a bigger scale.
Got it. Got it. Okay, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. We do have a few follow-up questions one from Claire and one from Harsha. So I have unmuted both of you. Claire, since you started the questions, do you want to ask your question, or should I can also speak up. I can speak the question as well. So feel free to unmute yourself, Claire, and ask the follow-up question, the one that you posted, or I can, yeah, there you go.
Sure, thank you. Sorry if it's quite noisy. I'm on a bus on the way to work. But yeah, I think I think you made a good point that obviously today's day and age there's so much content that we consume. And obviously it's audio, written and visual, everything's changing. I was wondering if you had any idea of the evolution of that content, will it evolve in any other form? And what's the kind of best content that you find to get traction for your audience?
Sure. So first off, thank you for asking that question. So it's good to hear from the group as well. I'd say like the format of the content is it depends on who you're targeting, right? What I can see happening is a combination of this different formats. So I see more and more products creating a way for you not only to read but also to listen. For example, right, like the writing platforms actually have the ability to like play the article so that you can listen to it. And the reason for that is people are mobile, moving around, doing different things. You can be within your home or out and about, going out for a run, right? So what you want to do is follow the audience where they are. If you cannot like, if you cannot like, if you don't have a control over like capturing their attention. So what I can see happening is platforms combining these different features to make sure that the audience consuming it are able to do so in many different forms. So that's one way to look at it. And then I think you have a second question here, which is there is a flood of content, and then do I see the content evolving? So the answer is I see that happening a lot. I mean, we see that, right? So like for example, video content started from in long form. And then you have YouTube having different lengths, but like TikTok came in and then it became like short form content, right? So there's going to be always a remix of different formats depending on like what's happening around the world and how people are adapting to it.
Okay. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Hi, this is Harsha. Let me ask a question. So thank you so much, Mark. It's good to meet you. So when I think about the word creator, I have a different take on it. I work with what is known as synthetic data and generative design. So I just wanted to get some perspectives on the concept of creation in of those artifacts. How does one look at it from the originality, from the difficulty, from the creativity aspects, and what could we do about, like pricing, monetization, differentiation. Yeah, just wanted to get some thoughts on that. I know you talked a lot about content, but I just want to really focus on getting your expert insights into the creative aspects of generating, such synthetic data and things like that.
Yeah, Harsha, that's a very interesting question. Can you give me an example of those synthetic data that you're working closely with?
Sure. I'll give you a very good example. So this is part of my regular work. So I'm working on a solution for simulating accident scenarios for autonomous vehicles. So I actually generate those images and scenarios, and which could be used for simulation by cars. Right. The other example I'm working on is to generate facial and medical data that could be used for diagnosis and things like that. So these are things that we work off, of some, data in hand, and then exercise a lot of creativity algorithms to generate new and perhaps unimagined content or data, right? Or something like that. So that's why I'm wondering how the creator economy that you've discussed, goes to a new level, or, what could we think differently about it?
Yeah, I guess so. This is the space that I'd say I'm not working closely with, right? But I can think of a couple of things. One is as you're creating this synthetic data, there will be people who can provide additional inputs there. Maybe there's a group of people who can curate or aggregate those raw data that you need in order to process it, right? So whatever you need to process, you can find individual curators or creators to address that. So from a content creation side, then you're now having to work with independent contractors or creators to deliver that work. Like that's one example. Okay, so that's one. And then the second piece is like the consumption, right? So like right now, if it's like the thing that's coming to my head is this is a service that you provide to like bigger companies, but then at some point maybe these are assets or products that you can provide to smaller individuals too. So for example, image processing or AI filters, right? So at scale, maybe you're doing this to provide a service to media companies, but then now like individuals are movie makers and filmmakers, and like they can consume these tools as well. So like the way I'm thinking about it is you continue to do your work, but at the input side and at the output side, there will be opportunities for you to work with independent creators.
Is it okay if I ask a very quick follow-on question, Mark?
Of course.
How do I price creativity? What is the additional price point that I put on top of content offering that I say is a value for the effort that I put in creativity and originality?
Yeah, that's a tough question, and I'm not gonna claim a pricing expert. But what I've seen is like people are willing to pay based on the perceived value that you're offering, right? So first look at the cost incurred and all the expense that you have, because that's going to be the baseline. Look at the market forces and how competitions are pricing themselves, but also just like go there and test it out. Like for example, in the course creation world, prices can range from like a $20 like book all the way to like 100,000 MBA, right? In a university. So like education is such a broad space, but the spectrum of prices can range from like a very low price to a higher price point. And we can argue that at any point in that spectrum, you can offer something to some audience, and it all boils down to how much the people are willing to pay. And if you don't know your pricing, I suggest try to experiment on it. Try to put it in small groups and then see if they're gonna actually say yes. If people understand the value that you're delivering, then they're gonna be willing to do that. So to pay and use your service.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark.
That was some great set of questions, Harsha. So thank you so much for sharing and bringing those questions to the table. And likewise, Claire, thank you to you for bringing your questions to the table. So I learn a lot when people from the audience ask questions. So thank you for that. Mark, this marks the end of our conversation. I really appreciate you making time for us and making time from your busy day for us. So I genuinely want to take this couple of minutes to be appreciative of what you taught us here. And I'll be sharing this video on YouTube and other social channels as well. So we'll be tagging you on there as well. Any last thoughts before? What I want to ask you, this is one thing I want to ask you is you're creating a course, right? So tell us about where can we learn about this course and anything. I'll be linking them below this video for the people who watch this in the future.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm doing a month-long course called Build Your Squad. It's how do you do community-driven product building, and it's going to happen end of the month, and you can find it on Maven right now, maven.com.
How to build your squad on maven.com from Mark Tan. I'll make sure I look it up because I can use some of that knowledge myself. So thank you. That concludes the webinar. Thank you, everyone. Any last thoughts, Mark?
Yeah, by the way, I'm creating this with a course partner. His name is Nathan. So you'll see him on the site. And then if you want to reach out and chat about this topic, look me up on LinkedIn or on Twitter. You'll see me there.
Wonderful. And your LinkedIn and Twitter will be below this video as well. So you can, if you're watching this video in the future, you can connect with Mark.
Thank you.